No pasarán was a slogan. The fascists will not come, they will not pass, and a very popular anti-fascist slogan. And now you have a so-called anarchist using that shirt, no pasarán, with the colors, the Ukrainian colors, promoting Ukrainian fascism, promoting actual fascists. So it's just a complete mindfuck here. Like, she's wearing an anti-fascist slogan, promoting a right-wing imperialist fascist government.
Para que se asustan será pa' mejor. Es el pueblo entero el que ya está gritando. ¡Viva la revolución!
Iranian nuclear weapons development.
They have turned the island into a communist hellhole.
The experiment in Venezuela has failed completely.
I'm gonna play a clip. This is me and Nick's favorite band. You guys might have heard of them. They're called Pussy Riot. Our favorite band, just amazing revolutionary women promoting the struggle and freedom. Obviously, if you guys haven't understood by this point, we're just fucking around. But I am gonna play a clip about Pussy Riot.
If they're playing music, everyone cover your ears. It's terrible.
It's horrible. Their music sucks, honestly, dude. It's complete nonsense. But they are, if not like the most well-known anarchist, anarcho-feminist group out there from Russia. These three feminist chicks who are anarchists or whatever. And they're all about, Ukraine and supporting the fascists and U.S. imperial. They hate Putin, but they're anarchists. They're against all authority, right? So I'm going to play a clip. This is a little compilation. The first part of the clip is a trailer for their new song called Putin's Ashes, right? So they're fighting against the state and the government revolutionary. The other one is an interview with the member and a report about some of the tactics that they use. So I'm just gonna play this, and then we'll talk a little bit more about how anarchists like Pussy Riot serve imperialism and empire.
One woman who knows the wrath of Vladimir Putin firsthand is Nadia Tolokonikova, a founding member of the Russian protest group Pussy Riot. She was sentenced to 2 years in prison.
I just want to point something out real quick before I continue it. So this chick has a shirt that says "No pasarán," and in Spanish that means "they will not pass." And that slogan is a very popular anti-fascist slogan from the Spanish Civil War, which, by the way, the Spanish communists were very crucial in fighting and defeating a lot of the fascists. There were anarchists as well in the Spanish Civil War, but the communists
and of course,
were the ones.
Stalin and the Soviet Union supporting them against Franco.
Right. Exactly. Very, very good point right there. Stalin supported the anti-fascist movement in Spain and the communists and their anarchists. And the No pasarán was a slogan. The fascists will not come, they will not pass, and a very popular anti-fascist slogan. And now you have a so-called anarchist using that shirt, no pasarán, with the colors, the Ukrainian colors, promoting Ukrainian fascism, promoting actual fascists. So it's just a complete mindfuck here. Like, she's wearing an anti-fascist slogan, promoting a right-wing imperialist fascist government. So I just wanted to kind of point that out before I keep playing.
After an anti-Putin performance, she joins me now for the first time here in New York. It's so cool to actually meet you. We've only talked over satellite and stuff.
Amazing to meet you.
Yeah. So when you look at the war in Ukraine, I mean, obviously there were huge failures of the Russian forces and incredible victories by Ukrainians early on in the fight for Kyiv and other places. Russia's obviously having more success in parts of the Donbass right now. what do you see? I mean, what do you see Vladimir Putin's position? How do you see it right now? Is he stronger than ever in Russia?
I don't feel it's like that. A lot of experts inside of Russia, they propose to divide this war in two stages, and some people talk even about two wars. So the first war, Putin has lost it because he wanted to capture Kyiv really quickly.
Right, which they thought they could do in 12 hours or so, and obviously did not.
And there are multiple, the hackers from Billingcat and other agencies there to try to capture what Russians were talking with each other about, and they were totally sure that they're going to be able to capture Kyiv. So they lost that war, and they completely had to change not just their strategy, but also people who head the war. So it's basically a completely different operation right now. It's a completely different war, and also goals that Putin state for the internal use, like the goals that they announce in Russian propaganda are completely different as well.
Right.
So they stopped talking about denazification basically because nobody believes in denazification anymore because nobody actually understood what actually they're talking about.
So she talks about denazification. She said nobody understands what denazification is. The Soviet people lost how many was it? Like 20 million or something? Nick, how many people they lose during the fighting the Nazis?
Yeah, it was like 25, 27 million, 28 million, somewhere in there.
And it's just ridiculous for her to be like, oh, they don't know what denazification is. They don't know what they're talking about. The fucking Soviet Union defeated the Nazis, and so many millions of Soviet people died fighting fascism, and the liberation of Donbass from the Ukrainian Nazis is a continuation of the fight against Nazis. And just for her to completely gloss over that is just insane. I'm going to keep playing some more of this.
Since he's been in power in Russia, Vladimir Putin has steadily cracked down on democratic freedoms and the protesters who support them. A crackdown that intensified after his re-election as president over a year ago. Nothing symbolizes this better than the arrest in March 2012 of a group of young feminists after they staged a protest against Putin in Moscow's largest cathedral. It got a lot of attention since the Orthodox Church is one of the most revered institutions in post-Soviet Russia. As we first reported in March, the young women have become the poster girls of Russian dissent. Surprising, since they're a punk band on YouTube that makes lewd gestures and cartoonish get-ups. Most of what they do is deliberately offensive. It might offend you, like for starters, their obscene but attention-grabbing name, Pussy Riot. This is what got them arrested. 5 girls in the church in their trademark masks called balaclavas, praying to the Virgin Mary to drive Putin away. Using vile obscenities, they blast Putin for limiting freedoms and jailing protesters. The whole thing lasts only 51 seconds before they're shut down. It looked silly, like a prank, which made the harsh punishment seem so out of proportion. 2 of them were sent to labor camps for this. Now, a year later, we track down the other 3 who are at the church. 2 are in hiding. Katya Samasevich isn't. She was put on trial and convicted, but released after 7 months because she never actually danced on the altar. That's her that day in white. Do you have any regrets about what happened that day?
No, of course not. Look what's happened. Since the election, Putin has brought in a new level of repressive government measures in Russia.
She says they chose Moscow's biggest Russian Orthodox cathedral because in last year's election, the patriarch called Putin a miracle from God.
The elections weren't legitimate. There was vote rigging, there was false counting. It was clear that the president put himself in power.
But are you advocating the overthrow of this government here?
Yes, we want the government to leave power because we consider it illegitimate. But we're advocating for a peaceful overthrow.
The band members are idealistic and brave, and well-educated. Katya's a computer engineer. She was living at home with her dad and working in a government arms plant when she decided to become a political provocateur. She began with anti-authority stunts, like surprising female cops by kissing them, then posting the video online. Her partner in crime was Nadia Tolokinakova, a philosophy student and seasoned agitator. They formed their punk band as Moscow was boiling over with protests in 2011 after Putin announced his bid for re-election. It was Russia's Arab Spring, and the band, made up of 12 or so feminists who call themselves girls or devushki, set out to change the world. They staged public disturbances, like this one in the middle of Red Square, right under the Kremlin, howling, "Riot! Riot!" Shouting a profanity that Putin was so scared of protesters, quote, he peed in his pants.
So these are the anarchist guys. And this is the face of anarchist culture and music and all this in Russia. And you see how it's weaponized against anti-imperialist governments. Like, I think one thing that's important to remember is that with a lot of anarchists, they talk about fighting against the government and calling governments illegitimate. Who's promoting those same talking points, right? It's the CIA, the U.S. imperialist media, Washington, London, all these different corporations say Putin is illegitimate. It's just interesting that all of the talking points of the anarchists and people like Pussy Riot match up completely with the CIA. So it's basically goes line in line. And another thing I want to point out is that even though me personally, I'm not necessarily 100% religious or committed to a particular religion, I think it's extremely disrespectful for people to go into any religious institution like that and do the kind of disgusting things that they were doing, like taking down these symbols that are holy for people. The Russian Orthodox Church has been very crucial in defending the anti-fascist movement and has spoken out against the ills of Western liberalism. And it's just funny because if you would have asked me maybe like 10, 12 years ago, you know, when I was like hardcore atheist, like I would have been like, yeah, fuck all religion and churches. But now it's like, what you have to understand is that in a lot of anti-imperialist countries, the churches are the organizing spaces against imperialism. And some of these churches, whether it's the revolutionary Catholic churches in Nicaragua that speak out against usury and Western decadence, or Orthodox churches in Russia speaking out against Ukrainian Nazis, you have to show them respect. And it's just really crazy to me that they're doing that. So what are your thoughts on that, Comrade Nick?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much there. You know, it's very interesting. They glorify that action that they were doing there, where they were just going up to random female police officers and kissing them on the lips. I mean, that's sexual assault. That's right. Totally, I mean, and they're acting like, oh, it's this, look how rebellious and funny and cute this whole thing is. You know, it's the double standard as usual. And I mean, the funny thing is that it's almost as if they're not even trying to be effective. Like you said, they go into this church and they do this. It's like, are they really trying to win people over, or are they just trying to sow as much chaos as possible? I think it's very clear their whole goal is to just cause as much chaos and disruption in Russia and really anger. And it's kind of funny because they are backed by the West. They are backed by the CIA and these NGOs and stuff, and with the purpose of trying to destabilize the Russian government. But they're so ineffective in it, how they do this. They're not going to win people over to their message by doing this. It's completely ridiculous. And you notice how they always like to talk about the elections in Russia being fraudulent and everything.
Yeah.
So then who really won the election? That's the question. Who really won? They just talk about how Putin isn't the one who won. but they'll never mention who the next biggest party is. It's not some pro-NATO, pro-liberal, pro-capitalism party. It is the Communist Party of the Russian Federation. Again, it is the Russian communists who are more anti-NATO than Putin is. They're more anti-US than Putin is. So it's just hilarious to me when they talk about these Western media hacks and these people that they're interviewing, these Russian tokens that they interview, and they talk about, oh, the fraudulent elections in Russia. Well, then who are you saying won the election? Obviously, the next biggest, the next group that got the most votes was the Communist Party. So are you saying you want the Communist Party to come into power because they're even more anti-NATO? It's not like it's some pro-Pussy Riot people that are, it's not like they ran for election and they came in second place. No. So it's completely ridiculous. Also, with that interview in the beginning, the CNN interview, it's funny how they're addressing the situation in Ukraine now. It's like they're still trying to say, oh, Russia's losing, all this stuff, when I think it's quite clear Russia has regrouped and is on the offensive now. And Ukraine is in a lot of danger. I shouldn't say Ukraine. The Kiev regime is in a lot of danger now. And NATO is in a lot of danger with their mission to try and weaken Russia. But yeah, it's a whole operation with groups like this to try and destabilize the country and do outrageous things like this that get people, just average people, not even the government, just average people angry at them. And then when the government responds to stop them from doing this, the Western media, the cameras are all there. Look how brutal this government is. Look how horrible they are. Oh, they're just there to create these incidents. That way the Western cameras could be there to record it and say how evil Putin is. And look, you don't even have to like Putin. You know, people know my views on Putin. I'm critical of him. He's not a socialist, he's not a communist, but that's not the issue. It's not the job of the West to try and overthrow the government. It's the job of the Russian people to decide that. And these groups that are backed by the West, backed by the CIA, as we could see, do not represent the Russian people at all. They don't even, it's almost as if they're not even trying to win over the Russian people. They do these outrageous things that just piss people off and turn them against them even more. So it's a complete operation. And I think, you know, if these people identify as anarchists, if you look at all the anti-war, working class, union struggle anarchists that fought against imperialism in the past, they would be disgusted to see people calling themselves anarchists acting this way.